The late afternoon sun slanted across the wide Texas plains, painting the dust in shades of gold and copper. A tall iron gate stood at the edge of the Dawson Ranch, its hinges creaking whenever the wind whispered through. On the other side of that gate, a woman paused, her hands rough from travel, her dress faded, and a little boy no more than 6 clutching her skirt. Her name was Clara Evans, and she had not expected to find herself here, knocking on the gate of one of the wealthiest ranchers in the county. Yet desperation had carried her this far. With her husband gone, lost to illness, and no family willing to take her in, Clara had sold nearly everything just to keep her son, Eli, fed on their journey westward. The last coin in her pocket would not even buy him a loaf of bread come morning. Her knuckles rapped against the gate. The sound seemed too small, too fragile against the vast stillness of the land. She waited, heart thudding. From the distance, the thunder of hooves rolled across the ground. A rider approached, tall in the saddle, the brim of his hat shadowing his face. As he drew closer, Clara saw him clearly, broad-shouldered, sun-darkened, with a jaw that seemed carved from stone. This was a man who carried authority with every movement, a man who belonged wholly to the land he rode across. Nathaniel Dawson, the wealthy rancher whose name was spoken in every nearby town. Some called him proud, others said he was generous, but everyone agreed he was powerful. He slowed his horse and studied the woman by his gate. His eyes, the color of storm clouds, swept from her worn boots to the child hiding behind her. "Evenin'," he said, his voice deep, steady. "You lost, ma'am." Clara straightened, though her knees felt weak. "No, sir. I came seeking work. I can cook, clean, tend to laundry. Anything honest." The boy peeked out at the stranger, his wide eyes wary. Nathaniel dismounted in one smooth motion, his boots crunching against the dirt. "This ain't exactly a boarding house. What brings you here?" Clara swallowed. "Hunger, and the need to keep my son with me." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Nathaniel's gaze lingered on her hands, calloused, marked by years of toil. His eyes softened, just slightly, when they fell on Eli. "My household's got hands enough," he began, then stopped, the words catching in his throat. Something about the woman's quiet dignity unsettled him. She wasn't begging, she was offering her labor. "Can you cook?" he asked finally. Clara nodded. "Yes, sir. Plain food or Sunday tables. I've done both." His mouth tugged into the hint of a frown, as though weighing something more than her words. Then he spoke slowly, almost reluctantly. "Will you cook for us, and stay?" Clara's heart leapt, though she fought to keep her voice steady. "If you'll have me, sir." Nathaniel studied her one last time, then pushed open the gate. "Come along. Supper won't wait, and neither will my daughter." Inside the Dawson ranch house, Clara's breath caught. The home was vast compared to the little cabins she'd known, a wide porch, polished floors, the smell of cedar in the walls. Yet despite its richness, the rooms felt oddly empty, as though something essential had been missing for a long time. From the parlor came the sound of footsteps, a little girl, about 8, with honey-blonde hair and curious eyes. She darted straight toward Nathaniel, then froze when she saw Clara and Eli. "Papa, who are they?" Nathaniel's hand rested gently on his daughter's shoulder. "This is Mrs. Evans and her boy. They'll be stayin' here a while. She's gonna help with the cooking." The girl's eyes lit with a joy that startled Clara. "Oh, finally! Papa, does that mean we won't have burnt biscuits anymore?" Nathaniel cleared his throat, looking faintly embarrassed, while Clara smiled despite herself. Eli clung to her side, but the girl crouched down, offering him a small carved horse from her pocket. Slowly, Eli reached out, curiosity flickering in his eyes. That night, Clara worked in the kitchen, rolling dough with practiced hands, stirring stew, and letting the scents of garlic and herbs fill the air. Nathaniel lingered in the doorway, watching her without speaking. There was something about the way she moved, efficient yet graceful, carrying a strength born of hardship. He found himself remembering the silence of his home since his wife's passing, the meals eaten without laughter, the echo of his daughter's lonely footsteps. When the food was set on the table, his daughter exclaimed in delight. Eli ate hungrily, and for the first time in months, Nathaniel felt the heavy weight in his chest lift just a little. As he bowed his head for grace, his deep voice rumbling low, Clara felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her. It wasn't just the fire from the hearth, it was the feeling of belonging, fragile and tentative, as though she had stepped into a place she might dare to call home. But in the back of her mind, fear lingered. Would this kindness last? Or was it only temporary, a single supper before the rancher changed his mind? For now, she pushed the worry aside. Tonight, her son was fed. Tonight, she had work. Tonight, she had hope. And for Nathaniel Dawson, a man who had long believed himself beyond the reach of companionship, a quiet question stirred in his heart. Had this woman and her child just filled the emptiness he'd tried so hard to ignore? The days that followed unfolded like a rhythm Clara had almost forgotten, a rhythm of home. Each morning, sunlight spilled over the Dawson ranch, gilding the fences and barns in soft gold. Roosters crowed, horses stamped their hooves in the corrals, and Clara rose early to the sounds of a household stirring awake. Her first task was the kitchen. She cooked biscuits, eggs, bacon, and sometimes flapjacks, while Eli helped carry wood for the stove. Nathaniel's daughter, Abigail, eagerly joined them, as though she had been waiting her whole life for a woman's presence in the house again. Clara taught her how to knead dough, how to season a pot of beans, and how to fold linens neatly. For the first time since her mother's passing, Abigail had someone to laugh with in the kitchen. For the first time since her father had buried his wife, Nathaniel returned from the fields to find warmth instead of silence filling the halls. Yet, with every passing day, Clara wrestled with unease. This was not her home, not truly. At any moment, Nathaniel could decide she was no longer needed. She kept her gratitude tucked behind politeness, determined never to appear presumptuous. Nathaniel, however, found himself noticing things he had never expected to notice again. The way Clara brushed a strand of hair from her face with flour-dusted fingers, the soft lull of her voice as she read Bible verses to the children in the evening, the quiet strength in her back when she carried more weight than most men could manage. He told himself he had hired her only for the sake of order in his household. But each time she smiled at Abigail or ruffled Eli's hair, a hollowness inside him filled, and he knew the truth ran deeper. Gossip in town. One Saturday, Nathaniel suggested they all ride into town for supplies. Clara hesitated. Her clothes were plain, patched, and she carried the weariness of travel. But Abigail clasped her hand eagerly, and Eli's eyes shone with excitement, so she agreed. In town, they attracted attention. Nathaniel Dawson, wealthy rancher and widower, walking beside a woman who clearly was not kin, with 2 children trailing like ducklings, one his, one hers. Whispers spread faster than prairie fire. At the general store, 2 women leaned near the shelves, their voices carrying. "That must be the new housekeeper." "Housekeeper, is it? Looks more like she's angling for a place at his table. And with a child, too. The nerve." Clara pretended not to hear, but her face burned. She lowered her gaze, focused on gathering flour, sugar, and beans. Nathaniel, however, heard every word. His jaw tightened, and his hand flexed at his side. He said nothing then, but when they returned to the ranch, Clara could feel the storm brewing in his silence. That evening, after the children were asleep, she found him on the porch, staring out at the dark plains. The air was cool, stars scattered across the velvet sky. "I'm grateful for your kindness," Clara began softly. "But I won't stay where I bring trouble to your name. If my presence causes gossip." Nathaniel turned, his eyes sharp as steel. "Let them gossip. Folks in town been whisperin' about me for years. How I run my ranch, how I raise my girl. I don't give a damn what they say about me. But I won't stand by while they spit venom at you." Clara's breath caught. Why would you defend me so?" His voice dropped, roughened with honesty. "Because you've brought something back into this house I thought was gone forever." Laughter. Like, my little girl smiles again. I ain't felt alive in a long time. Her heart thudded painfully. She wanted to believe his words, but fear tangled with hope. Could a wealthy rancher truly want a penniless widow with a child? A night of truth. The following week, a storm swept across the plains. Rain hammered the roof, lightning split the sky, and thunder rolled so fiercely it shook the windows. Eli, terrified, crept into Clara's bed. Abigail, not far braver, padded down the hall to her father's room. Before long, the four of them ended up in the parlor, huddled near the fireplace, waiting for the storm to pass. Clara wrapped a quilt around the children, while Nathaniel added wood to the fire. The glow lit his face, softened the harsh lines of his jaw. "Storms never used to scare me," Abigail whispered. "But Mama always held my hand." Clara reached out instinctively, squeezing the girl's small fingers. Abigail leaned against her, and for the first time, Clara felt like she was more than just a servant in this house. She was needed. Nathaniel watched silently. Something broke loose inside him, a barrier he had kept for years. When the children finally drifted into sleep, he spoke low, so only Clara could hear. "I swore I'd never let another woman close. Thought it'd be betrayin' my wife. But watchin' you with them tonight." He paused, the weight of the moment heavy in his voice. "Clara, you've already become part of this family." Her throat tightened. "Nathaniel, I'm just a woman who needed work. Nothing more." He shook his head. "You're more. You're the reason my girl laughs again. The reason this house feels like a home. And maybe the reason my own heart remembers how to beat." Tears stung Clara's eyes, but she forced herself to speak. "And what of Eli? He deserves a place too." Nathaniel's gaze softened as he glanced at the boy sleeping soundly by the fire. "Then he'll have one. As long as I draw breath, that boy will never go hungry or unwanted again." The storm raged outside, but inside, a different storm settled, one of fear, hope, and awakening love. Clara reached for Nathaniel's hand. Rough and strong, it closed around hers, sealing a promise unspoken. A new dawn. When the storm cleared and dawn broke across the plains, the world looked fresh and washed clean. The children ran out to play in puddles, laughter echoing across the ranch. Clara stood on the porch, the wind tugging at her hair, while Nathaniel came to stand beside her. "Clara," he said quietly, "I asked you once to cook and stay. Now I'm a skin something more. Stay not just as a helper, but as my partner. My wife. Be the mother my girl needs, and the woman my heart has been waitin' for." Her breath trembled, and for a long moment she could not speak. All the hardships she had endured, all the nights of fear and loneliness, had led to this, an offer not just of shelter, but of love. She turned to him, eyes shining. "Yes, Nathaniel. I'll stay. For as long as you'll have me." He pulled her gently into his arms, and for the first time in years, the wealthy rancher allowed himself to hold hope close. Clara, once a desperate mother at his gate, was now the woman who completed his family. And in that embrace, with children's laughter rising around them and the endless Texas sky above, a new story began, not of loss and loneliness, but of love, belonging, and home.